Have you ever calculated exactly how many hours you have spent studying English? Think about it for a second. Between middle school, high school, university classes, expensive language apps, and thousands of YouTube videos, you have probably invested hundreds of hours into this language. And yet, when you sit down in a Zoom meeting or when you try to order coffee while traveling, your mind goes completely blank. You find yourself translating every single word from your native language, and by the time you are ready to speak, the conversation has already moved on without you. You feel embarrassed, you feel stuck, and you wonder if you will ever sound like the fluent speaker you want to be. If you are stuck in this intermediate plateau, constantly feeling like a B1 or B2 learner who can understand everything but say nothing, I want you to take a deep breath. It is the year 2026. The old ways of memorizing grammar rule books and staring at vocabulary flashcards are officially dead. We are living in a completely different world now, and it is time to drastically upgrade your learning strategy. Welcome to the English Listening Podcast. I am your host, Sophie, and I am here to guide you out of that intermediate trap. Today, we are not just doing a standard listening exercise. I am giving you the exact 2026 English Learning Roadmap. This is a step-by-step blueprint designed to take you from a frustrated B1 or B2 speaker to a confident, fluent C1 communicator in the next 6 months. You do not need a plane ticket to London or New York, and you do not need an expensive private tutor. You just need to follow the exact steps in this audio. So, grab a cup of tea or coffee, get comfortable, and let's build your fluency roadmap. The very first step on our 6-month roadmap requires a complete shift in your mindset. I need you to forget about the massive, overwhelming goal of becoming fluent. Fluency is simply too big of a concept. When your goal is just to be fluent, your brain does not know what to do when you wake up in the morning. It feels impossible, so you end up doing nothing. Instead, we are going to focus entirely on micro goals. A micro goal is an action so small and so specific that it is practically impossible to fail. In 2026, our attention spans are shorter than ever, so we need to work with our brains, not against them. Instead of promising yourself that you will study English for 2 hours every Sunday, I want you to commit to just 15 minutes every single day. Consistency will always beat intensity. For example, a micro goal could be shadowing one paragraph of this podcast every morning while you brush your teeth. Another micro goal could be learning 3 specific phrases related to your career and using them in a voice note to yourself on your commute to work. By breaking the language down into tiny, digestible pieces, you eliminate the overwhelming feeling that usually causes you to quit. Over the next 6 months, these 15-minute daily habits will compound into massive, visible progress. 15 minutes a day equals over 45 hours of highly focused, intensive work over 6 months. That's enough to completely change how your brain processes language. Now that your mindset is set, step 2 is about creating a relentless digital immersion environment. You might not live in an English-speaking country, but you probably live on your phone. In 2026, your digital environment is just as important as your physical environment. Right now, I want you to think about the algorithms on your social media apps. What language are the videos on your feed? What language is your phone's operating system set to? What language are your news notifications in? If the answer is your native language, you are missing out on hours of free, effortless exposure to English every single day. To reach the C1 level in 6 months, you must force your brain to interact with English naturally. First, change the language on your phone, your laptop, and your smartwatch to English, but take it a step further. Go to your favorite social media platforms and start interacting strictly with English content. Watch English videos, read the comments in English, and write your own comments in English. When you teach the algorithm that you only want English content, your phone becomes a 24/7 immersion tool. You will start learning the slang, the abbreviations, the humor, and the cultural references that textbooks simply cannot teach you. You are moving away from studying the language like a school subject, and you are starting to live in the language like a native speaker. The third step on our roadmap is perhaps the most difficult, but also the most rewarding. You must break the translation habit. Right now, when someone speaks to you in English, your brain acts like a slow, outdated dictionary. You hear the English phrase, you translate it into your native language to understand it, you think of a response in your native language, and then you frantically try to translate that response back into English before you speak. This four-step process is exhausting, and it's the main reason why you speak slowly, hesitate, and use simple B1 vocabulary instead of advanced C1 phrases. To hit C1 fluency, you need to think directly in English. How do we actually do this? You start by narrating your life out loud. When you are cooking dinner, tell yourself what you are doing in English. Say to yourself, I am chopping the onions. The pan is getting hot. I need a little more salt. Furthermore, you must change how you learn new vocabulary. Stop linking an English word to your native word. Instead, link the English word to a mental image. When you learn the word apple, do not think of the translation. Visualize a red, crunchy fruit. If you are talking to yourself and you don't know the word for something, don't immediately grab your dictionary to find the translation. Instead, try to describe the object using the English words you already know. If you forget the word for refrigerator, call it the cold machine where the food lives. This forces your brain to stay in English mode and builds incredible problem-solving skills. Native speakers do this all the time when they forget a word. The more you talk to yourself, the faster your brain will stop relying on your native tongue. Step 4 is transforming how you consume audio. Since you are listening to this podcast, you already know the massive value of listening practice, but there is a huge difference between passive listening and active listening. Passive listening is when you have an English podcast playing in the background while you clean the house, drive, or work on a spreadsheet. Passive listening is great for getting comfortable with the melody and rhythm of the language, but it will not push you from B2 to C1 on its own. For the next 6 months, you need to dedicate your 15 minutes of daily practice to active listening. Active listening means giving the audio your full, undivided attention. It means listening with a pen and paper in your hand. When you do an active listening session, you should pause the audio when you hear a phrase you don't know. Write it down, look at the context, and try to understand exactly why the speaker used it in that moment. It also involves the shadowing technique we have practiced in our previous episodes. You must actively repeat the exact intonation, stress, and rhythm of the native speaker. You are not just trying to understand the message, you are acting like a scientist, dissecting the language to see how the grammar and vocabulary work together, and then forcing your vocal cords to recreate it. The fifth and final step on your 2026 roadmap is output. You cannot become a confident speaker without actually speaking. Many intermediate learners completely avoid speaking because they are terrified of making mistakes, sounding foolish, or being judged by native speakers. But in the modern era, you no longer have that excuse. We are surrounded by incredible free artificial intelligence tools that can act as your personal, non-judgmental speaking partners. You can use the voice conversation features on modern AI apps to have full, unscripted, highly realistic conversations. You can tell the AI exactly what scenario you want to practice. Give it a prompt like, "Act as my strict manager and let's discuss my quarterly performance review," or "Act as a friendly barista at a busy coffee shop in New York." You can practice your arguments, stumble over your words, make 100 grammar mistakes, and the AI will just patiently respond and keep the conversation flowing. You can even ask it to pause and correct your vocabulary if you want to sound more professional. Spend just 10 minutes a day having a verbal conversation with an AI assistant. This completely removes the social anxiety of practicing with a real human, allowing you to build your confidence in a safe, private space. By the time you step into a real conversation with a native speaker, you will have already practiced the exact scenario a dozen times. If you commit to this roadmap, your English will completely transform over the next 6 months. Fluency is not about natural talent, and it is not about finding a magic textbook. It is about committing to micro goals, curating your digital immersion, forcing your brain to think directly in the language, engaging in active listening, and taking advantage of modern technology for fearless speaking practice. The path to C1 fluency is clearly laid out right in front of you. Now you just have to take the first step and walk it. Thank you so much for joining me today on the English Listening Podcast. I believe in your potential, and I know you can break through this plateau.